83. We are back in Genesis. I'm Quintin.
I'm Wyatt.
This is Stand Firm Podcast, where two real Christians get together and have honest conversations and discover hard truth. I almost forgot to say our motto there.
We didn't say it last time.
Yeah, we did.
We did?
Yes.
Oh, man. I'm glad you're thinking of it. No. I got you to doubt it.
I did.
That's how I do it, guys. Just watch and learn.
I did, but then we had to redo it, so I don't know if I did it at the same time. Anyways, whatever.
That's right. Yep.
But yeah, we're back into it. We're going to be jumping into Genesis chapter 18 today in this part 2 series. So take it away, friend.
Let's get into it. Starting in verse 1, it says, "The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre, while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abram looked up, and he saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, 'If I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under these trees. Let me get you something to eat, so that you can be refreshed, and then you can go on your way, now that you have come to your servant.' 'Very well,' they answered. 'Do as you say.' So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah. 'Quick,' he said, 'get 3 seahs of the finest flour, and knead it and bake some bread.' Then he ran to the herd and selected a choice, tender calf, and gave it to the servant, who hurried to prepare it. Then he brought some curds and milk, and the calf that had been prepared, and set these before them. While they ate, he stood near them under a tree. 'Where is your wife Sarah?' they asked him. 'There in the tent,' he said. Then one of them said, 'I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son.' Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind them. Abraham and Sarah were already very old, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, 'After I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure?' Then the Lord said to Abraham, 'Why did Sarah laugh and say, "Will I really have a child now that I am old?" Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son.' Sarah was afraid, so she lied and said, 'I did not laugh.' But he said, 'Yes, you did laugh.'"
I love that.
That's so
dude.
funny.
I love that. It's hilarious. So yeah, Abraham's greeted with 3 visitors.
Yes.
And I think the first note that we see in chapter 18, there's 2 big takeaways here, but the first one I think is Abraham's, did I call him Adam at first?
I don't think so. I keep calling him Abram because we've been reading that for like 15 chapters.
But the first real note that I think we see is his hospitality here.
Yes.
He greets, he extends greetings, and he calls them my Lord, which in Hebrew is Adonai, a term that can refer to God, and bowing to the ground, is what you see Abram do.
It's funny, sorry to interrupt you there, but I just had the same thing written down. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 2. "Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware."
Well, and this is exactly what he's doing.
Yes.
Right? These 3 men are God and 2 angels. And then he just shows us hospitality, which we'll see later as we get into chapter 19, shows that he's a better host than Lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so that's the first, I think, piece in this chapter 18 is this hospitality. And then the Hebrew chapter 13 is that the hospitality as a covenant marker.
Yes, definitely. And then the fun callback that we just had last chapter, talking about, again, the promised son, I'm going to return next year, you're going to have a son. And again, they laugh about it, but their laugh and their doubt, it's funny because as we see, it'll turn to joy. And so I really like that about the name Isaac, meaning, he laughed, because it can mean like, yeah, you mocked me, but now look at your son. He's here, right? I did it. But at the same time, it's also he laughed as in joy because look at what God has blessed me with, right? So I really think that's interesting. I see, as I was doing some research on this, I've seen some people talk about how the three men could symbolize some Trinitarian aspect of God, but I just don't see that
it's not described
in the
as
text.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not
I
in
see
the
it much
text.
more as the Lord and two angels. And we see that, too, as the two angels that go down to Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was
So-
going to say.
But I still do think that's interesting that the Lord kind of travels with a couple angels, you know?
just a few of them.
Have an entourage.
Well, you see that in Job. You see
he's in the heavenly courts.
Well, and you see in Job, you see. I'm trying to think too exact, but that's one of the kind of.
Yeah.
This is a little off topic, but when you talk about the Nephilim conversation and the sons of man, you see sons of man again there in Job, but you see angels appear there, but I believe they're with Satan in that. I don't want to quote that too hard because I'm a little rough on my Job. But
I remember that, fairly decent with, the opening line as, like you walk into like the heavenly courts and among them walks up Satan, like the bad guy of the pack.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of people. It's not like God sits in isolation way far away from everybody.
So anyways, but that is an interesting note. And then you see whenever she overhears the conversation and she overhears that she will bear a son, and of course she laughs. And and she laughs and she says to herself, "After I'm worn out and my Lord is old, will I have delight?" But she shows this skepticism, and then what I really like is then God kind of gently reminding them of His power.
Yes.
So right after she laughs, the Lord asks Abram, like, "Hey, why did Sarah laugh at me when I said she can have a baby?"
Yeah.
And He says, "Is anything impossible for the Lord?" And then He repeats His previous statement where He says, "At the appointed time, I will come back to you, and in about a year she'll have a son." So I really like how God did that because He said, look, one, why is she laughing?
That's right. I heard that.
Why is she laughing at my words, my promise, my covenant? And secondly, is there anything I can't do? He reminds them of that. What is there that I cannot do? And then He repeats His previous statement. So I think it's set up how anybody would assert their authority a little bit in a situation where, like, say with your boss, you're having an argument with him, he's like, look, I'm your boss, so I'm going to, again, repeat what I've asked you to do.
Yeah.
And so there is that element a little bit where he's gently doing it, but he's reminding them of His power, and to a point where Sarah even denies it. So you could tell there was a little bit of intimidation there.
Just
There's
a hair.
a little bit of like, okay, I've been corrected. Which is, I did not laugh, and then it's hilarious. But he replied, "No, you did laugh."
Yes, you did laugh. I saw that.
Yeah.
I really like that, and I don't know. It's cool seeing, I guess, like angels and the Lord interact with humans because they're personable, it seems, right? They can, if you laugh or something, they're like, well, why'd you laugh? The Lord can do this and repeat what they were saying, right?
Yeah.
You will have a son. And then when they go, I didn't laugh, they go, yeah, you did. It's almost kind of like a little bit back and forth that I don't see too much of almost like it's a slap down or anything,
Right.
but almost like you said, a gentle reminder. It's kind of a nudge, like, yeah, don't laugh at that though.
Yeah,
I'm
just
being
talking to God.
serious.
Right. Yeah.
But I just really love that.
It is something cool that you see in the Old Testament is that, like that direct, like literal conversational.
Yes.
And
People
this is
speaking
and
with
this
angels
is,
and the Lord.
This is only the third time that the Lord had appeared to Abram, like at this point.
Man, you got to remember, he's 100.
Yeah.
That's crazy too, because I read through this and
Yeah.
it seems reading through the Bible like God just appears like every Thursday or something like that.
Right, no.
But
it's only the third time out of 100 years.
Yeah, once every 30 years on average.
Yeah, on average.
Wow.
So it's not as frequent as it seems.
But you got to imagine the amount of faith they had.
Right.
All of those years. 30 years in between talking to someone. And
Yeah.
don't quote me on this, but I think it's about like 14 or 15 years, which is how long Abram actually took from traveling from Ur to Canaan, right? His initial journey when God said, get up and go.
Yeah.
That was more than a decade.
Yeah.
And he
remained
just
in that
remained
faith
faithful. Yeah.
because of that conversation that he had. So, sometimes people, well, if I talk to God every day too, it's like, These are conversations that are 30 years apart.
Yeah.
You know.
These guys had some big moments, but just a few sprinkled in through their lives.
Yeah.
And it's a daily devotion. Right?
Yeah. So, anyways.
Really cool. Yeah. So, continuing into verse 16, we'll go. When the men got up to leave, they looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. Then the Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations on earth will be blessed through him," talking about the Messiah, "for I have chosen him, so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he had promised him." And then the Lord said, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin is so grievous, that I will go down and see what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know." The men turned away and went towards Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham approached him and said, "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there were 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do what is right?" The Lord said, "If I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake." Then Abram spoke up again. "Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of the righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5 people? If I find 45 there," he said, "I will not destroy it." Once again he spoke to him, "If only 40 are found there," he said, "For the sake of 40 I will not do it." Then he said, "May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there?"
It's like talking to a dad.
I know, right? He just winding down.
Yeah.
He answered, "I will not do it if I find 30 there." Abraham said, "Now that I have been so bold to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 can be found there?" And he said, "For the sake of 20, I will not destroy it." Then he said, "May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there?" He answered, "For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it." When the Lord finished speaking with Abraham, he left, and Abraham returned home. I always think that's funny.
It's so funny. It's
why didn't
literally
you just why didn't you just jump to 5 people to begin
It feels
with?
like you probably got to convince him a little bit. Like, man, if I jump straight to 10, he'll shoot it down.
That's right. He won't answer that then.
Yeah, so I think here's an interesting piece. So why do you think, of course Abraham kind of speaks about it a little bit, but why vouch so hard? Why speak it down from 40 to 10 to...
I don't know. I think he's trying to test. He's trying to find the boundary, I think. And I think he thinks of God. Well, he's fearful of God, which, as the Bible says, that's the beginning of wisdom. But yeah, so I think he's trying to find the barrier there. That's why I think he steps it down ever so slightly and it doesn't immediately just go to, all right, if there's one good guy in the city, are you gonna sweep it away?
Yeah.
Right. I really like this interaction between Abraham and God, because we hear it all the time, right? Don't put God to the test, right? In Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 16, Moses tells the Israelites, "Do not put the Lord your God to the test," right? And we see that a lot, in Judges, talking about, I think Gideon put out the fleece several times, trying to see, is this really God?
Right.
And we're told, you really shouldn't do that. But I don't think Abraham here isn't testing God. He's actually struggling with God's justness, right?
Yeah.
Are you actually going to sweep away the righteous with the wicked? And right here, we really see God's mercy.
Well,
and,
yeah.
Not destroying a whole city of wicked people just for the sake of 10 good men.
Yeah.
Right? That's I mean, that's crazy to think about, especially in our times. I mean, imagine if that was said about our town, with our populations, I think around like 30,000 or something.
Yeah.
It's like if there's 10 guys, you wouldn't do that, So it really, I think, kind of puts it in perspective that God only does these big, like, Old Testament wrath kind of style of stuff, like the flood and Sodom and Gomorrah. He really only does that if there's really no other way.
Yeah.
Right.
No, and that's kind of what I was getting you to get to there, is that I think he's testing the boundary, but he's also testing and wrestling with a little bit God's justness, like just like you said. And Abraham, he says that, you could not do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, right? Treating the righteous and the wicked alike, you could not possibly do that. And so then I think the Lord allows Abraham, that's a big piece there, allows Abraham to talk down. Okay, well, what about 30, 20, 10?
Because, he does say that a bunch of times. Can I speak again? Just let me speak one more time.
And so you saw the respect there, but you also saw that God was not, all right, fine, Abram. It was not, and it was not like Abraham said this, so I'm going to do it. No, it was that the Lord was expressing his mercy and his justness, right there to Abraham. And I think the Lord probably by doing that, was allowing Abraham to see his justness. Being at this point in the Old Testament, what other example would he have had? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly.
None
So,
really, so
he's allowing Abraham to see. We have to remember the context of Scripture that we're in, too, at this point. It's not like we're sitting here now with all these examples. At this point, he had not seen that kind of showing like that literally there. So, in a way, I think that could have been what the Lord was doing as well, was like, okay, let me show to you this justness, and that I'm not going to just kill the righteous with the wicked. I'll allow you to discuss that with me. And it is that discussion, and I think that's comforting to us as like a real-world application.
Oh, for sure. If somebody just says, I'm going to do this, and you're not okay with it to begin with, I think it's much more of a shock and much more of kind of a mean, adversarial, I'm going to do it, you don't have the power to do it, haha kind of thing. But if you do kind of talk them through it almost, well, why shouldn't I do that? Or talk with them about it, they can see that rational side of you, that you're not just immediately going to, destroy the whole city. It's no, I'm doing this because there's a real reason to it. I liked, as I was preparing for this, looking at some of John Calvin's stuff on this subject, and Calvin views that Abraham's intercession as a model of bold yet humble prayer, showing that God invites human participation in his judgments, right? He doesn't let humans make those judgments, but he lets us participate and almost kind of intercede for others.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's kind of what I was saying there. It was like Abraham did that a little bit, and, you see God's willingness to spare for the righteous as well.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It would have been maybe a different conversation if Abraham would have made that argument to him, or that, that proposal, and he would have been like, no, still going to do it.
Yeah. Or if Abraham came adversarially, coming at him, like, why are you going to do this? You're a monster.
Yeah.
More so trying to figure out why, right? Yeah. It's not coming from a place of, you're terrible and I hate you. Really coming at it, I think, with understanding. I think there's a lot of that in the Old Testament that's overlooked, is people don't immediately jump to the worst conclusion, like, you're a monster, we need to kill you immediately. They do kind of say, well, why did you do that? And then, you'll quickly figure out whether they're a monster or whether they have a real reason behind it.
So, there is Genesis chapter 18, really encompassing God's willingness. He spares the righteous. You see the true faith of Abraham kind of speaking for others. Yeah. And, being able to have that conversation with God, and kind of like you said, like, vouch for people, and God allowing Abraham to have a say in it, and that not being this, like, dictatorship of, no, like, nah, that's not gonna happen. Like, it was it was a little bit where Abraham, like, he was able to discuss with God and talk him down, and so, Yeah, so I think there's an interesting things to see there.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think this is a really interesting moment that you don't often see that. Somebody like
No.
bargaining with God himself, you know?
No, but I
Kind
think
of
it
a thing.
was everything to see there was the way it was done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was not arguing. He was not even necessarily questioning. You know, to a point he was, but not of like a, how are you so terrible?
No.
It's just like, you can't, there's righteous people. There could be righteous people in there.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
God's like, all right.
Well, yeah, just exactly the verse. Far be it from you to kill the righteous with the wicked, right? Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right?
Yeah.
Right. Just right there. That tells you his intentions.
Yes, and I think it even further pushes the idea of the Lord being our Father, in the sense of, like, I know with my dad at least, you know, we work together at the church, and a lot of the times it's like, you know, and this isn't even just church. I don't know. I guess it's everything, but it's like
There's tough decisions to make.
There's tough decisions, and I come to him in a sense of respect, but also I have a different view. Can we look at it in this lens? And because he's a good father, he says, okay, and we do that, and we look at it that way. And that was even when I lived in the house. It was like, you know, here's what we're going to do. And I'm like, well, hold on, can we do this? This is before I was an adult, but he would still take into account my opinion, my sister's opinions, and eventually make a decision, and this is what's going to go, but take those opinions into account. And so I think that further pushes that idea that God is our Heavenly Father, our Father, in the sense of like, okay, let me receive your input. And, you know, and he wasn't allowing Abraham to make the decision, but he was receiving his input and accepting it, doing that.
I see that too, and it's funny because I see it more of as a judge role, that God is the judge, you know, and it's always kind of a hard pill to swallow, or it's like easily forgotten that, you know, we're all going to die.
Yeah.
We're all going to go before a judge, and the God of all creation has the authority to wipe out a town. Yes, we don't like it, and yes, we can say that, well, that's wrong or whatever is, but he's the judge at the end of the day. That all the souls that die, however they die, right, whether it's being swept away by him or by, you know, a mugger, you know, some human interaction, they're still going to go before God, right? They're still going to go before the judge. So I really like seeing that he is a righteous judge, and he doesn't want to end the lives of the righteous, but he does want to make the wicked pay, right? So
yeah, exactly. So anyways, there's episode 83.
That's right.
Episode 83 in the books. We will see you next Sunday.